Welcome to all. We're going to dive into social media marketing for franchise and multi-location brands. We're really going to get tactical and talk about what's working for social campaigns for franchise and multi-location brands. I will put it out there. I know that I am not Maddie, as was originally promoted in the webinar. My name is Jason Lynch. I'm the Director of Demand Generation. Maddie was unable to make it today, and I work with her closely. We've done a lot of webinars together, and I worked with her on this content, so I was able to slide right into the host seat. I'm joined today by Diana Carter, who's our Senior Campaign Strategist and Strategy Team Lead at NetSertive, and is the true expert here in all things social and media buying. So Diana, what would you say you do here day to day at NetSertive?
Yeah, so my job is to understand what our customers' goals are and then build campaigns around those goals to help meet whatever objective that we're hoping to meet. So really building effective campaigns across digital channels like search, paid, social, video, CTV, etc.
Nice. And I'll say today we are definitely going to share the deck and recording, and we welcome your questions. So go ahead and enter your questions at any time. And if we don't get to them live during the webinar, we will send you an email with an answer. It's something we like to do here at NetSertive. And we actually structured this webinar really to answer your questions. So many of you submitted amazing questions when you registered. And so we want to dive into what's working in 2022, how to do targeting and budgeting the best. And we're going to do that in the way that we know how, which is really answering your questions that you submitted. So talking about localized marketing, just a bit about NetSertive. We define localized marketing as actively managing a digital marketing and online presence at the local level. What's unique about franchise and multi-location brands, as you all know and live every day, is that you have the brand and then you have local marketing, and it is a lot to juggle. And you have so many channels across so many locations, and the number of touch points just ends up being an exponential spread of things that you have to manage. And we believe that localized marketing is really impossible to do manually. So that's why NetSertive has built a platform that helps multi-location brands and franchises to localize their advertising and their SEO and their web solutions at scale. So if you are a multi-location brand owner, you know that getting to those touch points and having hyper-local content is so difficult to do. There's stakeholders and variables to manage, and there's so many data points to aggregate. That's something we hear a lot of from our clients, is that they just feel like they're drowning in data because they have so many. So talking about social media specifically today, they have so many locations with so many social platforms, and how do you manage it all? So that's really what we do, and some of what we'll dive into today. Just a little bit more about NetSertive. We really have that deep expertise in localized digital marketing, paid media, organic SEO, landing pages, location sites. We've overseen nearly $2 billion in media spend through our platform. We love taking care of our customers. We have award-winning customer support. We actually work with brands and locations. We develop one-to-one support relationships with every location that we serve. We have named account managers, and we have experience driving success for over 100 multi-location brands. So some of our customers are here. We do a lot with franchises, with multi-location brands in home goods and automotive. So enough about NetSertive. I know we want to dive into some of this content that we've prepared for you all today around social media. So some of the biggest brand to local social media challenges we hear from our clients. One of them is engaging local stakeholders to post organic content, that's a huge social media challenge. Um, Having a meaningful ad budget for each location and potential channel. There are so many channels now, and really, what are the goals of each location, and what are the capabilities of the channel? What is the audience intent for each of these social channels, and how can you execute all of that in a meaningful way? It feels overwhelming, and oftentimes, the response is maybe keeping it too simple or too high level, and there's a lot of location social media channels with very empty feeds, and they're not doing too much. um, Another just problem is activating and optimizing social campaigns at the local level at scale. There's a lot of great platforms out there, and ways of helping, but it does take putting, every channel you stand up takes a lot of support from the corporate office to manage and make sure that everyone's aligned and using it appropriately. I know, Diana, are there other brand to local social challenges that you hear from our clients?
I think the biggest one is probably just, resources and bandwidth, right?
Mm,
So a lot of the franchisees that we work with, their sole job is not digital marketing. They're working on the floor, selling products, going out and maybe letting dogs into the day camp. They're not focused on digital marketing. So just having that time available is the biggest challenge. And then also just like knowledge and resources. Learning best practices and learning the best way to implement campaigns and scale those campaigns are probably the biggest challenges that we see from a franchisee level.
yeah, absolutely. I think social media it's such a powerful channel because it can be used to target your audiences. It can be used to build brand. It can be used to tell the story of each location, and it can also be used to further corporate campaigns and messaging. So I think bringing all of that together into a meaningful program is the challenge that we want to dive further into. And I think the big outcome or takeaway from today is to succeed with localized social media marketing. It's really ensuring that your goals and campaigns align with a channel's capabilities and intent. So it really starts with your goals. We could definitely have a high level trends campaign or a trends webinar rather, right? And we could talk about, here's what's going on with TikTok. Here's what's going on with user generated content. Here's what's going on with influencers. But what we know is that when you're a franchise or a multi-location brand, you are very focused on driving revenue at scale across multiple locations and managing that in a way that is effective and doesn't drive everybody crazy. So I think we're really going to talk a lot about goals and intent and aligning with with your strategies. So we have a question here from Joseph Alvarez. He says, is there any data or case study to share with local owners so they buy into social media ad campaigns? My owners respond well to what's in it for me. Yeah, and we'll talk a lot more about that. I don't know if Diana, you have anything off the top of your head, but we do get a lot more into that what's in it for me question further into the webinar. So we'll definitely talk about that. So just a little bit more about scaling multi-location social media. If you think about the three tasks that you all have as brand and social media marketers for multi-location brands and franchises, you really first are thinking about how can we localize this campaign, and that takes into account the local audience, the location and the content strategy, and what exactly is that location aiming to do as a business. It all starts there. And looking at social media channels, I think the most important thing to keep in mind is that they do not exist in isolation, right? It's not that you have a social strategy or you have someone over here, we're going to make funny videos, or we're going to hop on this trend, or we're going to do this social program, or we're going to launch this distributed content platform. None of those motions exist in isolation, and it all ties into having traffic come into your websites, right? It ties into retargeting, audience building. So if you have a Google campaign running, a Bing, Microsoft advertising campaign running, if you have multiple social media campaigns running, organic, local, SEO, all of that traffic is coming into your location sites or landing pages. And oftentimes there's a long research cycle for the people that are on this webinar. There's a long research cycle for your prospects. And so depending on your relationship with that prospect, they're going to come to your website multiple times before they convert. So being able to retarget them, to build that behavior-based targeting is a really important aspect of your overall strategy. Similarly, with landing pages and location websites, how are you capturing that traffic most effectively? What are you linking to from your social channels or from your ad campaigns, and how are you driving those conversions? So it's really this important task of localizing, because all of that needs to be done at the location level, which can feel overwhelming. So the support is another thing. If you're going to launch a program, if you're going to say, all right, we're going to drive traffic from this channel, it's really, you have to align corporate, locations, vendors, oftentimes multiple vendors, and you have to get everyone bought into exactly what they need to be doing. And as Joseph was saying, it's that what's in it for them, especially at the franchise local owner level. They really need to know, what do I need to be paying attention to? Because we've seen all sorts of different campaign approaches, and oftentimes, I mean, you can't even get owners or franchisees to respond to emails from the home office. Sometimes there's more clear-cut compliance with corporate owned brands, but if you're asking a retailer which promotion do you want to opt into, just answer this survey, you might not even hear back from them in order to opt into that promotion from the corporate level. So there's a lot of best practices and ways of thinking about it, but it's all about localizing, supporting, and then analyzing. So looking at national and local insights, what's working overall, and then what's working at the location level, and how can you think about scaling that best practice to try it at other locations. Looking at an ROI analysis, don't just stop at cost per lead or cost per acquisition, or looking at the return on ad spend. If you can tie your systems together in a way that is going to allow you to actually see the ROI of your spend, then you're able to really get into what's working, and that's where you can really scale with confidence. And like I was mentioning, shared learnings. There's so many ways we've heard from our clients that they share learnings, not only with a portal or dashboard where they can see across all the different locations and see the performance. That's one of the things we do with our clients, but also having meetings, incorporating learnings. And oftentimes there's a marketing committee. There's the process of gathering learnings and feedback, and just understanding those sort of the social dynamics in a multi-location network of who's the big gorilla, who's being really successful, how can you work with those kind of leaders in your retail network to help you spread the word as to what's working really well, and get people excited about it. I think oftentimes people don't want to be first to try and experiment with something. So if you can say this is working really well and get others to buy in, then they're gonna help you to accomplish your goals of localizing, supporting, and analyzing, so that you can have these really strong social channels. And sometimes those, people will say social media doesn't work for our brand, but the reality is social media with the correct platforms, targeting and budgeting will definitely work for any brand. I think it's just a matter of understanding your business and stakeholders and the dynamics of your particular industry. So just get into the questions here shortly, but just what I was talking about with matching social media platforms with user intent. This isn't an exact science here, but in general, if you look at the capabilities of Meta, right, which is Facebook and Instagram, if you look at how Facebook and Instagram, they're much more, there's much more local business opportunity on those platforms in general. People are there for connection. They're looking for recommendations, local business, family and friends, direct messaging. There's a higher purchase intent there and much more of a connection with a local location and commerce possibilities. Whereas if you get over into LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, it starts to get more informational and with lower purchase intent over to platforms like TikTok being sort of the ultimate short form content. I'm just here to browse and have fun and look at what's going on with new and entertaining videos. And I know there are a lot of brands on this webinar actually that have TikTok accounts with millions of video views. And depending on the brand, that it can be an amazing channel for brand awareness and getting your name out there, helping people understand the values of the network and the brand and the services that you provide in the community. It doesn't have the same kind of robust ad targeting as other channels. It's not as local of a platform at this point, but if you're matching your platforms with user intent and you match your content in the same way, then you'll get the right kind of engagement and the traffic is going to match the quality that you're looking for. So Diana, we'll jump into some of the questions that people provided when they signed up. What are some of the best campaign objectives and ad types to use? And what are some things that people can do to help campaigns convert?
Yeah, so there's not exactly a clear-cut answer for this because the campaign objectives that you choose and the ad types that you choose should be based on your goals. So there's not like a one-size-fits-all type of strategy. So before we get into the objectives and ad types, the first step is really, to set a goal. Like, what are you hoping to set out and achieve? And when you're thinking about the goals, a lot of you are quite familiar with this, but you should choose a SMART goal. So your goal should be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So an example of a goal that could be improved upon would be, I want to generate leads, more leads, right? Way to improve that would to say, I want to generate 50 leads a month through paid advertising, and I want to do that at a $50 cost per lead. So each month you want to generate 50 leads and you want that to be at a $50 cost per lead. So in terms of if that is achievable, that is really going to be something we need to look at as well, because if your average cost per lead is 50 and you want 50 leads at minimum, your monthly budget should be around $250. So if you're coming in saying I want 50 leads at a $50 cost per lead and your marketing budget is only $1,500, that is likely not going to be achievable based on other performance metrics. So setting a goal is the first step. And then the second one is choosing the objective that is best aligned with your goal. So on the next slide, Jason, we have that kind of outlined as well. So Facebook has 6 objectives that they support, and these have recently changed. So if you're familiar with the Facebook objectives, they kind of just reduce this down a little bit. But the 6 objectives are awareness, right? So if you want to build awareness for your brand or your service, or even a particular product or rebrand or a new website launch, Awareness, of course, would be your objective. If you're looking to drive traffic to a specific page, your objective is website traffic. If you're looking to generate more content, more likes on your pages or likes on your posts or comments, you're really looking for engagement. If you really want to drive form submissions or build, an email newsletter list, you'd be looking for leads. If you have an app and you want people to download it, or maybe go to perform a specific action in your app, for example, add something to the cart or checkout app is your objective. And then finally, if you're looking to purchase or sell goods or services, you'd be looking for a sales objective. So once you know this, it's going to funnel you down into more of the nitty gritty, which the next step would be defining who you want to serve your ads to and who is going to be most relevant for you to meet your goals. And there's 3 types of audience types on Facebook or Meta. The first is core audiences, and these are going to be attributes that are either given within somebody's Facebook page or the behaviors that they exhibit on Facebook. So you can think of if you are a male or a female, your age range, the place in which you live, where you grew up, if you recently got married or if you recently moved. So these are going to be your interests, behaviors, and demographics. The second type of audience is going to be your custom audience, and these are your first party audiences. So maybe tracking and setting up an audience for website activity, so website retargeting, or perhaps you have a customer list in-house that you want to leverage, or even re-engaging with people who already like your page on Facebook. And then the last type are going to be lookalike audiences. And these are going to be audiences who share similar interests or behaviors to an existing audience. So for an example, if you have a lead form on your website and you have a bunch of information about people who have already submitted a lead, you can build a lookalike audience to find people who look similar to your existing audience. So once you have that defined, then you'll want to take a look at, well, where am I going to serve these ads and what is the ad format? So it's going to vary based on, again, on your audience and your objective, but some examples of this would be carousel ads are ads that have 3 or more images that you can kind of scroll through within your feed. So an example of this might be if you're a home service company and you offer power washing and gutter cleaning and window cleaning, you might have a page or an image within your ad that speaks to each one of those services and directs traffic to that specific service page. Another example of this would be a slideshow ad format. So if you are interested in generating awareness and driving more video views on your page, but you don't have any video content because it's expensive to produce and that's just not within the wheelhouse right now, slideshow ads might be the best format for you because you can take images, still images, and then build them into more of a video type of format, which is super compelling and engaging on Facebook and Instagram and other social media channels. So overall, it's just matching your objectives, your goals, who you're targeting, and the type of ad that you're serving that person. So it's a little bit of a long-winded answer, but this should give you some more resources to think about how you want to target and build out campaigns.
Yeah, and I think this is also, the same basic structure applies to all of the social platforms, right? Where there are nuances for sure, especially around ad types and targeting, and when, where those ads show, but those basic ideas of, walking someone through, okay, what's the goal? What's the objective? How are you, who are we targeting, right? And then what's the best content to engage them? For Joseph's question, if you are working with a franchise, a franchisee, right, and what their goals are, oftentimes franchisees will have unique goals around specific services, and you can walk them through really backing into a profitable campaign. So to say, hey, if you invest, $1,500 in this campaign this month, you'll see how it will, this is the goal, this is the potential investment, and you can just talk them through. We could drive this many leads, and those could come from these audiences, and we can create this kind of content, so that you can just show them a map basically and say, this is what we're projecting as the experience that you're going to have running these campaigns. And oftentimes the platforms even help you do that with those projections. So I think you can even take it down into the campaign planning and say, this is what we're doing and why. And then I know we're going to talk about testing in a little bit here as well, but Dawn's asking, this may be a dumb question. There's no dumb questions. How do you do website retargeting? So we're going to talk about that shortly as well. So it's a great question, Dawn, and someone asked that when they signed up. Question, do I need to be on every social channel? The obvious answer here is no, you don't. But it is important to think about, where are your customers checking for information? If you're a local business, what platforms do they see as important, and where are they going to check for reviews to see if there's any latest specials, if even just to make sure that the lights are on. I know Diana is going to cover some more around social channel planning, but I think again the big idea is just aligning your business with the channel. So just matching your social strategy to your business goals and platform intent.
Yeah, Jason, this is actually a social media map that we'll share after the webinar today, but this is provided by Meta, and it's actually a really good resource to use to map out what your goal is, who you want to target, who your ideal audience is, what ad formats are best to serve that audience, and then the types of interests and behaviors that someone would demonstrate. So then you can choose the channel. And then once you have this is a really good, social mapping to pass along to franchisees and say, at a corporate level, this is who our audience is, and these are who we these are the audiences that we recommend that you target based on performance and our goals and things of that nature. So this is a really good way to just take a step back, level set, and put a good plan in place for your marketing strategy. So you're not just going out and spending money and without some sort of plan behind that.
That's great. What are the top KPIs that I should use with social media spend? And this is a question we're able to prep an answer to here.
Yeah, so this is another one where there's not exactly a clear-cut answer, right? Because the KPIs or that you're looking to measure are going to be highly dependent based on what you're looking to achieve. So we didn't list out every single metric or every single objective that you might have, because as you can imagine, there are likely infinite amounts of combinations. But just really high level, if you're looking to build awareness, you're going to want to look at something like, how many impressions am I delivering? How much does it cost me to serve these ads? What is my ad efficiency? How often am I reaching my target audience? If you want to drive website traffic, of course, you'll be looking at how many clicks are you driving? How many people are going to the website and waiting for the landing page to actually load? And of course, how much does it cost for each click? Because if your cost per click goes up and your budget stays the same, you will be driving less traffic. And then lastly, if you're looking for leads, of course, you'll be measuring leads, whether that is a phone call or a form submit or a lead submission on Facebook. And then the efficiency of that, what's your average cost per lead? And then even taking that a step further in terms of, internal, when you do drive a lead, what percentage of those leads close? And what does that average sale, what kind of value does that add to the business and overall revenue? So you can look at things like, what is the return on ad spend for your marketing efforts? So It's really going to depend on based on your objective, but once you choose your objective, you can really narrow it down into specific metrics that are going to be aligned with those goals.
And as far as aligning platform traffic trends and with budget and outcomes, in general, Facebook and Instagram are going to offer better purchase intent type traffic. So really actually having local business conversions coming from those platforms. Whereas you get in some of the other channels, there's just less purchase intent, right? There's oftentimes less of a one-to-one relationship with a local business. Facebook is great for building community. But then that doesn't necessarily mean that those other channels aren't the right channel for your franchise or multi-location business, because it could be that Pinterest is an ideal channel. It's just going to be more for brand awareness versus direct leads. Similarly with TikTok, it might be great for brand awareness, for engagement, for just getting your name out there. But it can be tough, again, thinking about the jobs of localizing, supporting, and optimizing. It can be really tough to engage franchisees or local stakeholders into, managing a TikTok, or, I've seen some home goods, like mattress store owners that have their goofy TikToks that are doing really well. That's not everyone's personality, right? So as far as thinking about channels holistically for both organic and paid, you really just have to kind of match your brand and your culture and your stakeholders, and then the organic and paid campaigns that you run. So I know it's a lot, but it's somebody's got to do it. Looking at this next question, what is the best way to go about testing before we spend our entire budget? I think this is another great way to get people bought in, because you can say, hey, we've tested this. This is real data. This is going to work in this way. What would you say there, Diana?
Yeah, so first, we should always be testing something within your campaign or account, whether you've been running ads for 1 day or 3 or 10 years. You should always be testing. The landscape of digital ads is quite literally changing every single week and every single month. So testing is incredibly important. But the first thing is, of course, setting your goal. What is it that you're looking to achieve? Are you looking to increase your click-through rate by 5% within the next 3 months on Facebook ads? That might be a specific goal, but setting that goal, and then secondly, making sure you have your pixel and your conversion tracking in place. We'll go over this one a little bit more when we answer the question regarding how to set up retargeting. But if you don't have your pixel and conversion tracking in place, and your goal is to be looking at leads, you can't measure that. So that is of utmost importance before you're spending any sort of your ad budget. And then testing one element at a time. So what you don't want to do is create an ad with one image, one headline, one description, and then another ad with a completely different image, completely different description, completely different headline, because you're not really going to compare the results of those two apples for apples. So just one thing at a time, keeping it simple, and then moving forward. And then number 4 is setting a budget that's going to be statistically significant. And this sounds broad and vague, but it is intentionally that way, because what is significant statistically is going to vary based on your account, how much you spend, what the marketing budget is, what your goals are. But you do need to, generate some more data in order to make meaningful measurements from that. And then running your tests for a good period of time, right? So you can't run a test for a day and say that was a wash, it sucked, and then move forward. So giving that some time to run, again, it's going to be dependent on what your goals are and how much your budget is, but a good rule of thumb is 2 to 4 weeks. And then, of course, evaluating your performance. So whatever you set out within your SMART goal, saying this is how I'm going to measure this goal, you're going to want to measure that. So for example, if you're looking at one ad and everything's the same except for images, if you find that the click-through rate is what you're going to measure the ad against, and one ad has 5% click-through rate and one has a 3, what you want to do is go ahead and pause that 3% click-through rate ad, replace it with a new element, a new image, and then repeat testing. But you also just learned something with that ad that did win. So you might want to consider breaking that out, putting some dedicated budget behind it, and then continue testing. So in terms of how much you should be spending is going to vary, but usually if you can carve out like 10% of your monthly budget to testing, that gives you some good leverage to build some data and put a good action plan in place for continued improvement.
That's great. So again, I mean, very tactical and practical, which is the goal of today. Is the targeting different in platform versus the business ads manager? I think this is a Facebook Meta specific question.
Yeah, so I took this one to mean what is the difference between boosting a post and creating an ad through Ads Manager? So I hope that's what the intent was. But really, boosted posts are, you're going to put a post on your Facebook page, and then you're going to pay money to amplify that message. And we won't go through every single line item in this slide, and we'll share this afterwards. But the biggest difference between just boosting a post and creating ads within Facebook Ads Manager is that you're going to have a lot more control, options, and data that is going to be available to you. So if you're just boosting a post, you're going to be limited to the places you can put that ad, who you can target with that ad, the types of ads you can even create. So whether or not you're going to send ads to just one URL or 3, or even the call to action that's available to you. So boosted posts are a really great way to start. Maybe, if you haven't run any ads before, but where the big control and opportunity for, delivering really good results is going to come with Ads Manager, just based on the leverage that we have to pull and information available to us.
That's great. Getting to this, how do I leverage retargeting question? I know this is really well laid out here on this slide.
Yeah, so let's see, how to leverage retargeting. So Don, this is going to be very easy, and it sounds complicated, but the first step is to create and install your Facebook pixel. And all this is just a piece of code that you put on your website. And that's going to allow you to build audiences of people who have been to your website, and also track the actions that they take once they arrive to your website. So, are they going to add something to their cart? Are they filling out a form submission? Are they giving you a phone call? Those sort of valuable pieces of information. So installing the Facebook pixels first, so you can actually understand who's coming to your website. And once you add that, you can start building audiences based on either specific actions that you're interested in targeting. And there's a whole lot of ideas here, but you can target anybody who comes to your website and just build a list on that. You can take it a step further and say, I only want to build a retargeting list of people who have visited this specific service page, or people who spend the top 10% of time on site, meaning they're really engaged people. Or you can target people who opened a form submission but actually didn't send it. So a really good way to increase that increase the abandonment rate. You can also leverage that for abandoned cart retargeting. So if someone added something to their cart, didn't check out, you can then serve them ads. Or you can also use your own customer list. So if you have information available through your company where you have customers' names and emails and phone numbers, you can build audiences based on that. So this is a really specific example, but if you're like a home cleaning, home service company, you might be able to take a list and say, these are all the homes or people who haven't had their gutter cleaned in 6 months, and therefore they're likely due for another gutter cleaning. So you can start serving ads to those people and say, something along the lines of, fall's coming, your gutters are already full. Here's a special offer or something along those lines to come back. So there's a lot of opportunities that you can leverage with the pixel once you have it in place. You just want to make sure you have a good sample size. So the minimum number is, having at least 100 people in your retargeting list. Ideally, that's closer to 1,000, but of course there may be some limitations. But you should always shoot for 1,000 at least. And then once you have your retargeting lists built, you can leverage those within the campaigns that you build, and even build specific ads around them. So if you are, say, an e-commerce customer or a automotive dealer, you could upload a product catalog of all the vehicles or products that you serve, or sell rather, and then create ads that dynamically pull in the products or vehicles that maybe someone has looked at on your website already. So they're super relevant. People are more likely to engage with them. But yeah, that's overall just making sure you have your pixel installed and then creating audiences that are going to be most relevant to the goal that you have in mind.
That's great. And again, in general, the same retargeting dynamics apply across platforms. So if you're doing this on another platform that offers retargeting, it's going to work the same way generally. I think it's really interesting to think about getting those funnel type campaigns where if you could engage someone with a really good video and they watch a certain amount of it and you say, I want these people who watch this video to be now in this retargeting audience, that based on your content strategy, if you set it up like this, it's very likely that someone who watched this video is a good candidate for X service. And then you can have multiple ads that will be served to them that will continue to drill down into your location's either deals or value props or products around that service. So it's a great way to think about your content strategy into, it's not, you can get really smart, and retargeting is the thing that really makes a big difference. So how do I get franchisees to post on organic social? So this is one I can take. And, when in general, franchising is interesting. I think it applies to all kind of local businesses and the stakeholders at those businesses. But if you're going to build a brand, the best way to do it is to build it in a hyper local way, because communities, they want to have relationships with people at these businesses. And so, if you can get someone that's into posting at a location, the best way to support them is to have a real clear-cut menu of post types. And if you're going to do, you're going to go on site, you're going to do coaching, teach them how to create content so that they feel comfortable. But if you have a menu of these, take a picture of someone coming into the door and waving, or take a picture of someone behind the front desk, take a picture of someone on site with a happy customer, take a picture, right? Give them, don't make them be blank slate creative, right? Give them these ideas that they can pick from and make it really easy for them. How can you best tee that up? Another way that I know one of our podcast guests was talking about this, Kristen Bahacek from Massage Lux was saying she gets franchisees involved in organic by explaining it in a PR value, right? Because they're saying, what's in it for me? If we know that organic posts get better reach, for example, than something that's posted from corporate, we can actually quantify the value of that reach. So the way she does it is by looking to see, okay, this post has an earned media value that we can assign. So you can look at how much, if you look at, for example, calculating that earned PR value, she looks at it by going to the total organic impressions. And this is sounds like a lot, reach out to me. We can even look at it for some of your posts. But she'll take the total organic impressions and divide by 1,000 and multiply that by the average CPM in digital ads, which means if it costs $7, okay, this is a typical metric in social advertising. So if it's $7 to reach 1,000 people in Facebook advertising, then you can actually take the organic post reach, divide by 1,000, multiply by 7, and then you can see, hey, look, this post reached, $500 worth of people. So if this was the equivalent, your one video of you being on site with a customer or something, that was worth $500 of ad spend. And that's where a franchisee starts to get excited, because the money does talk and they do understand, wow, okay, this only took me 2 minutes and it was worth the equivalent of $500 in reach in ad spend because it was organic and got more traction. So there's definitely there's a lot of value and a lot of ways of talking, and that what's in it for me, like Joseph had talked about. So another question: what's the most important step in creating a paid social media strategy? And I liked Diana's answer to this, which is pretty foundational and something people miss. I know
Yeah, sorry. I mean, the first step in creating a paid strategy, and again, I feel like a broken record, but it is first and foremost setting the goal that you have in place. So a clear understanding between, you and your company, you and your agency, you and your marketing team, whoever it may be. What are we trying to do? And how are we going to do it? And how will we measure if it's effective or not? That's the first step. If we don't have that, you're really not setting yourself up for a ton of success. So that will be the first step. And then the second most important thing, and we mentioned this a couple of times already, but is, measuring against that goal. So setting up your Facebook pixel, which is again, just a piece of code that you add to your website. And that's going to be the most important thing. So if your goal is leads and you're spending $2,000 a month to drive people to your website, but you're not actually measuring what they're doing once they get to your website, there's absolutely no way to really measure whether or not that ad spend was effective. And you might end up in situations where you, like Joseph mentioned in the questions, starting out, investing heavily, you're not seeing results. So if you're not setting up conversions, or you're not setting them up correctly or entirely, you're not going to set yourself up for measuring the actual results. So the two most important things are setting a goal, determining how you're going to measure, and then actually, implementing the measurement from it.
Awesome. Does social media impact local SEO? So I prepped this one because I thought it was a great question, and it does. Not only does it matter if you think about the local acquisition user experience, right? They're going to, jump around and look at multiple channels to assess your business, right? Not only is they're going to do a long research cycle, but when they're really getting down into it, they're going to say, okay, are you a quality business that I want to do business with? And so having that organic social media that is active and shows that you're a robust local business, it absolutely does improve local SEO, because it's going to result in people searching for your business more. And also it plays into the actual weight when you look at reviews. If you oftentimes there are some social channels that will show up at the top of search results, even sometimes before websites do. So another way that it plays into search engine results directly is with consistent listing address information and contact information. So having a consistent address and phone number across all of your business listings and social platforms is just another check the box that you're supposed to do as a business, and something that Google and Bing view as positive for, pointing to a specific business and elevating that business in the search engine's eyes. We mentioned positive reviews. The more, if you see Facebook reviews pop up in search results, and you can see those, high star rating, that makes a big difference. And something that's super in the weeds is local schema code on location sites. So that's one to jot down and make sure you have this. So there's actually on the back of your local location sites for each location, you can tag relevant social media sites or channels for that location. So you can tag those pages on the back end code. And again, what you're doing is you're saying in the local schema code, this is the latitude and longitude of this location. This is the type of business. These are the hours of this business. These are the social media profiles for this business. And you're just elevating the value of that business in through the quality of information. And local SEO especially is very much a process of sort of doing all the little things, and they add up to complement the content work that you're doing on your website. So it does make a difference, and you don't want to have empty channels that are just not being used at all, because it looks like the business is closed, honestly, and it's confusing to customers, which I think ties into this question. Should I use an agency or internal team? If I use my internal team, what are some best ways to train them? I think it definitely ties into, it's oftentimes the answer is both in some way, right? Where you have a baseline agency for organic, you have an agency that's helping you with paid, because there's so many tactics. So it's difficult to stay on top of all the tactics and manage all of those campaigns at scale across all these channels. And then you also are engaging the local stakeholders in the process of posting, whatever organic content aligns to your content strategy. But I don't know, Dan, if they use their internal team, what are some best ways to think about training?
Yeah, in terms of training, specifically, at least for Meta, which is Facebook, the blueprint courses that are available. So if you just go to Google and you type, Facebook blueprint, there are a ton of courses that are available for free that really walk you through every single element that you would need, knowledge on to effectively run campaigns across their network. So the Facebook Blueprint program would be my first, first place I would point somebody if you're looking to either gain experience yourself or looking to get your team ramped up with some more education.
Yeah, and I think the training is great. And again, those concepts apply across platforms. So as you go to another platform, you're going to be familiar with retargeting, and so you're just going to understand, okay, how does this channel do retargeting? So you really just have to get that baseline in place. So not sure if there's any additional questions, but we're definitely open to taking them, or any follow-ups from the team here. So any additional questions? Definitely open to that here as we close out. Go ahead and enter them in the Q&A. Otherwise, feel free to connect with us. These QR codes will take you to our LinkedIn profiles. You can point your camera right at the screen, or you can send us an email. Happy to discuss your social media strategy, your localized content strategy, really all things digital marketing. We're always happy to connect and discuss. So with that, thank you so much, Diana. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. And oh, look at this. Hold on. I did get a question I didn't see here. Hold on. When getting owners to start campaigns, how do you decide a daily budget? I have owners that only want to do the minimum or I have owners that want to invest heavily and then back out when they do not see results in a month. how would you answer that? I think the answer is really answered in that testing framework that Diana talked about, but what would you say there, Diana?
Yeah, so just a couple of things that, coming up with the budget, there's a couple of different levers you kind of look at. So it's going to really be dependent on, of course, what your goals are, where you're geographically situated. So, running a campaign in Nebraska is going to cost a little bit less than running ads in Manhattan. Who you're targeting, how many people you're looking to target. And from there, really what you can say is, I have this many people in my target audience. I want to reach them 4 times a month. If you know that number and you know the average CPM, so how much it costs to serve 1,000 impressions, you can back into a number that might be beneficial to your business. But overall, I'd say the biggest thing is really, starting small. Don't start off with like the maximum amount you're ever willing to spend and running awareness campaigns when your actual goal is to generate leads, because then you do end up in a situation where your goals and your objectives and your strategies really aren't aligned. And then you can end up in a situation where it is actually not working. So my recommendation is usually to, start with the fundamentals, build everything up, focus on your primary goal, and then start building a funnel with maybe more consideration or more awareness as you go on. But prove it before you scale it is always a good suggestion.
Yeah, that's great. And yes, so question, we will definitely be sending a recording. Thanks so much for that question. And then also Kevin had asked about any tools to form a ranking system for your franchisees to see best performers to non-performers. So yeah, we can definitely, I'll send you an email with an answer to that one, but we do, NetSertive has a tool as far as performance goes that can show across the locations how their campaigns are performing across a variety of metrics. So yeah, it's great. Well, thanks so much. Sorry I missed those questions, but glad we were able to get to them at the end here. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and say that we're going to end the webinar. And again, thanks so much to everyone for joining today. And thanks again, Diana.